and welcome back to My Doll's House Diary. Now we're back in the kitchen again today and I want to begin the decorating. Now I tried to get started on this morning, but when I looked in my cupboard in my workroom I realised I didn't have any lining paper left. So I had to make a quick trip out to B&Q, our local DIY store, to pick some up. And I've got this lining paper, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but it's just a nice sort of matte paper, quite thick, and it's got a little bit of a texture to it as well, which will look really nice on these sort of old farmhouse kitchen walls. So I'm going to be using that, and I'm actually going to start by making a template of this right hand wall, the back wall, and the back part of the left hand wall around the window. And then the chimney breast that I showed you in the last episode, and this part of the wall here, I'm going to keep as exposed brick. So I've got some lovely sort of textured brick paper that I'm going to be using there. So I just want to make a piece to go sort of wrap around part of the side, the back and this side. And I'm going to make the template using this as well. And then what I want to do, and I haven't done it this way before, but what I'd like to do is make one whole piece for the whole lot, so that I can sort of curve it around those back corners and that I won't have that sort of line then looking like an actual paper join. I just want it to look like one whole piece. So we'll give that a go, so I'll be trying that for the first time. Now, what I just sort of thought about this morning, I didn't remove this door surround, so that's going to be my first job before I start making the template. Okay, so I've got the smallest of my flathead screwdrivers here, and I'm just going to use it to sort of ease this away from the wall. Now this came with the house, it had all of the doors in it, so it would have been stuck in place for quite a while. So let's just see, start at that corner, and I'm holding on here to sort of support the house from rocking backwards. I'm actually just splitting the wood, but that's okay because I can get off as much as I can like this and then sand the rest away. I'm also trying not to sort of dig the edge of the screwdriver into the side of the house as I'm doing it. There. Ease that down. I'm just trying to see if I can sort of get underneath that. Like that. Let's try this top one. I've got a bit of a gap there, so I'll go in there. I want to keep this part of the door frame in, so I can put a bit of filler in there. I think I've just got to slightly change position to get in to that remaining piece. Because of where this surround is, and you can't sort of get in there with the screwdriver to pull it off, not advisable to go that way because you're sort of cutting towards yourself. Always cut away from yourself. I've had to come up with another solution. So I've got my razor saw here, and I just started sawing away the wood that was sort of left on this top part, and then I can get behind the top of that last bit of surround. And that's just to give myself something to get the screwdriver behind. So just make a bit of a saw. Taking a bit more of the paper with it there as well, which is absolutely fine. And then I should be able to get in there again with my screwdriver like that. Get rid of that bit. And then I'll just use the saw again and see if I can get behind that remaining bit. if I can help it. That's coming off nicely now. Okay, so a little bit annoyed. As I was sort of pulling away this final bit of strip here, I've pulled a little bit too much off, and that's part of the surround, like you can see here, that I wanted to keep. So what I'm going to do is tidy this bit out now, and then I'll sand around the door, and then I may just have to put a little bit of filler in. So I've got a piece of 180 grit sandpaper here wrapped around a sanding block, and I'm just going to sand over the door opening. Put that there for a moment. So I'm going to use this fine surface poly filler just to fill this hole up here, down here, and then there's a little bit down here that I just want to flatten out. Now this will have the lining paper over the top of it, and then the replacement door surround. So I'll just mix a bit of this, and I'll use a cocktail stick to do that and a piece of card, and then I'll apply it on here, and then we can leave that to dry before we sand again. Okay, so I've just squeezed a little bit of that out onto there, and the bit that's been at the end of the tube is always a bit dry, so I'm just sort of mixing that in using a cocktail stick like that. And then I've got this glue spreader here, which I'm going to actually put it on with. So I'll just take a little bit of that, I'm going to spread it over at the top there, pushing it into the hole as you go. Again, I'm putting it on quite thickly because I actually want to sort of shape it when I sand. And in those cracks along the side as well. I always find with this, the more you keep sort of playing around with it, you'll sort of be putting it on and taking it off again. So once you're happy with it, then just leave it. I'm going to do the same down here. That's okay for now, and then once that's dried, we'll sand again, and that will give us a nice smooth surface for when we replace the door surround. Okay, so whilst this poly filler is drying, I want to start creating the template for the lining paper. So I'm going to still do it in sections, so this section here, and I can see where the chimney breast is going to because the glue has sort of left a line along there. So it's about 1 centimetre or 10 millimetres past the window frame, but I'm going to do my template to reach just beyond that, so about 25 mil or 1 inch beyond the window, and then I know that it'll tuck nicely behind the chimney breast there, which will be covered, like I said earlier, in that brick paper. So I've started just cutting off some strips of the lining paper, and I'm just going to start building it up a bit like a puzzle. So I want to use the straight edge, natural straight edge of the paper along that ceiling there. So the width of that, I think, is actually okay. So you can sort of lay it in and make a crease where you want it to go, and then I can bring that out and cut along like that. Might have gone just a little bit below there, but it's always better to not cut enough off than cut too much. And I don't want it actually right up along the ceiling either. I want to leave about 1 millimetre, and I'll be putting in some beams up there which will cover the gaps. I actually need to cut a bit more off there. If you saw my craft shed series, you would have seen me doing this with the wall in there that had the window on. And it's just a sort of really handy technique for making a template that fits exactly. So that would go along there like that, and I even just want to trim a tiny little bit more off above that window. So just keep going in and making tiny adjustments and then trying it again. Like that. And that's a nice fit this time, so I'm going to try and get it to stay up there, and then I'm going to use masking tape just to stick it into place at the edge. Push it right back into that corner, like that. And then I want to put a strip going down that side. So again, I'll begin by measuring that up, and always overlap your last piece. And the time I want to come down there. Again, cut just in front of that line. Try again. But that edge along the wall is fine, so I'll stick that one into place. Tape up there. Stick that to the previous piece. So that's the first bit of template done, and then what you can do is just very carefully peel it off so that it stays in one piece. So that's then the template, and what I'll now do is stick that all together properly, put a bit more tape on there so I've got a nice solid piece, and that will then be the first edge of the long piece of paper that I want to use. Okay, so I've also made templates now for the back and the side wall, and then I've covered over the window and the door, as you can see. And what I'm going to do with the door is I'm going to draw through the door opening from this side, just with pencil. I'll just use my hand to keep the paper flat there. Down that side as well. And then when I remove the template, I can cut that out. And then, because I don't want to pull the sideboard forward to get to the back of the doll's house again, what you can actually do here, you can feel around with your finger and just make a slight crease where the window is, and then you can just come in with your pencil, and if you shade over, like that, it will give you the natural outline of the window, so you can then cut that out as well. And then I tidied up the first template that I made of that left-hand wall, the back area there, and I've just written on it front and left-hand wall, and it might seem pretty obvious, but when you're sort of cutting out, it's just always best to have written on them which way up they should be facing. Okay, so I'll now remove these other two templates, and then I'll make one for the ceiling as well. So here's the final template, and this is for the ceiling of the kitchen, and I basically measured it out on the floor because it will be the same sort of surface area, and then I held it in place and just went over again with my pencil just to find where the copper eyelets were. So that's where my copper tape wiring light will be placed. and I can just see there, I don't know if you can see them on the camera, but there's just a couple of little circles where the eyelets are. So I'm just going to cut around those. I just want to leave a small square, and then when I do the beams, I'll sort of cut that square into the beam as well. Just lift that out like that. So that's all my templates done. The last bit of filming I did was actually on Saturday afternoon. It's now Tuesday morning. So I'll just show you what else I've done this morning. So I began by removing the bifold door from the doll's house, and I put all of the screws in a little pot which I keep inside the doll's house for safekeeping until I need them again. I then used a 180 grade sandpaper wrapped around a sanding block to smooth away the polyfiller around the door entrance. And I used the same to sand around the inner edges of the window opening. I then used good old-fashioned sponge and water to dampen the walls so that I could remove the ceiling and wallpaper. Some of it came away in nice big strips, most of it didn't. When I'd removed as much paper as I could, I used the sandpaper and block again, 180 grade sandpaper, and I just sanded over all of the walls and the ceiling. Okay, so that's the wallpaper removed, and I must say that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I think all in all that took me about an hour and a half, so not too bad at all. And though I haven't gone back to the bare board, I have got a nice smooth surface now to attach the lining paper to. So remove as much paper as you can and then go over the top with the sanding block and sandpaper, and I used 180 grade. And what that does is remove any little fluffy bits of paper that might be left and any glue residue or paste residue that might be on the wall. So the tiles are a little bit damp still from the water I was using on the wall, so I'm letting those dry out. I might just get my hairdryer in there and give it a quick blast. But the tiles are going to need cleaning, but I'll leave that until the end, until I've papered and painted and put all the skirting board and everything in, and then I might reseal them, but we'll see how they look after I've given them a clean. Okay, so the next job is to cut the lining paper, so I'm going to do that now. So my ceiling template, nice and straightforward. I've just lined it up against the straight edges of the roll, and I'm going to use my steel rule and just cut around the outside. Just put the ruler a little bit down on that side. And then, oops, still joined on over here. And I'll just line these up again. And I'm just going to cut that central piece out. And that was the hole for the light fitting. Like that. So this is right side up, so that will now be the right side. I'll just put that to one side. Okay, so again I've squared off the lining paper, and I'm starting with the right hand wall, and I want to work my way around along the roll. But I just want to put a little bit of masking tape on this to hold it into place as I'm cutting around it. Just put a little bit down there. Put up there onto the board. And I'll use my steel rule again to go round and cut it out. So I'm just placing it as close to the template as I can. And I don't want to cut along there. I nearly did it then. This is going to be one continuous piece, remember. Just go along the bottom of that part there as well. Okay, then I can take that off. So move that along and then just cut this sort of excess piece off. Save that for something else. And I just want to sort of move it all along. And because it's curling up, I'm just going to stick that bit down again. Okay, so I think I cut a little bit longer than the template, so I'm just going to lay it back on there. Oops. Drop my pencil. And then on the part that will be discarded, I'm just going to make a little line of where that actually came to. Pop that there. And I want to bring in the back wall. Now I don't want to put it right beside that. I want to leave a couple of millimetres, which will be the corner, where I'll sort of be pressing the paper into the corner, and only a couple of millimetres. I don't want to leave too much or the window won't be lined up anymore. I just want to get that straight along the top there, and again I'm just going to use a bit of masking tape to hold that in place. And I'll start by cutting inside the window. It's always best to cut a little bit in a little bit than you need, so leave a little bit extra because you can always trim that off once it's in place. If you cut too much, it means sort of patching a bit in, which can look messy. And then along the bottom. And then before I move that, I'm just going to do that line again. So I know where that one ends and the next one needs to begin. Coming down there. And then the final template for that left-hand wall. And again, I just want to put that over a couple of millimetres, if that, probably 1.5 millimetres there. Again, just stick this down. Again, I'm going to start by cutting out the window part. And then this time I can actually cut along this side. Now if you remember, I put extra on here to go behind the chimney breast, so I'm not too bothered about going over a little bit further there. Won't hurt to have more on there. And then I'll trim it off along the bottom. And there I have my continuous piece. I'm going to go and put that somewhere safe, tidy up here, and then we'll check that actually in the kitchen. Okay, so there's the lining paper in place, and I must admit I'm rather pleased with that because it fits perfectly. So leaving that sort of couple of millimetres between each template was the right measurement. I was worried that that might be either not enough or too much, but that was fine. So I've got a little bit overlapping here on this inside edge of the door. That's perfectly fine because I can trim that off once the paper's in place. You can see that that fits perfectly around that left-hand window as well. And I did have to stretch it at the top and bottom, so obviously didn't cut enough out of the template, but I am actually really pleased with that. The only other thing was I'd cut a little bit too much away at the top of the window, you can see there. But again, that's perfectly fine because the window frame will cover that. So the next job is to actually stick this in place, and I want to do it in sections, so I'll probably apply glue to the back wall and then get that piece stuck down, and then we'll come around here and then around here and do it that way. And I always think it's best to put the glue or wallpaper paste on the wall first. Okay, so I'm using my Gorilla Wood glue to attach the paper, and I've got a little plastic pot to dispense some in. I'm going to be applying it with a brush, and I've got a kitchen towel here just in case of any spillages. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted. So I've got this sort of stiff piece of foam here which will help me press the wallpaper into place, and then I've got this plastic sort of scraper, and I'm going to use that to push it into the corners. Okay, so let's take the lining paper out carefully. And I want to work quite quickly here because I don't want the glue to dry off too much before I get the paper in place. And I'm spreading it out quite thinly. Making sure I get it right into the corners. press that all into place. I'm just making sure I haven't got any creases in it. And just as I said that, a crease came. Just push it into the corners. So keep sort of pressing it into place, trying to work out those creases. And then I'm just going to go and get my hairdryer. I'm going to give that a quick blast, and then as the glue dries, the paper should shrink back. Okay, so that big wrinkle that sort of appeared there has practically gone, and I think once that's painted over that won't be visible. And I'm having the door there as well, don't forget, so that will be hidden. It's a shame that it made that wrinkle, but I think that looks okay actually. Right, so I now want to get some glue behind this side piece. And that's the final piece in place. Got quite a bad wrinkle there quite early on, but I was sort of aware all the while that that would be behind the level of the unit, so I wasn't too sort of devastated, but I still don't like the fact that there is a big wrinkle there. Although I have found that when I've gone away and left wallpaper overnight, some of the wrinkles do actually disappear. They do shrink back a little bit more even after having used the blow dryer, so hopefully that will happen. But if not, like I say, that will be below the level of the units there. And because of that wrinkle, it took away from the length of the paper here. So again, I've got a bit showing around the door. But again, that's okay because I'll be building a new door frame around there. So furniture and frames and things like that do hide some of the faults. Okay, so now the ceiling paper. Okay, so we're at the end of another episode, and once again I haven't done anywhere near as much as I hoped, but at least the kitchen is now at the next stage and ready for painting, so hopefully I'll get that done within the next couple of days. I also want to get that chimney breast back in and papered, and that will probably be it for another episode. For now, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!